And okay, before we start, I want to introduce you to a unit owner who's in my building, and that's Stuart. And Stuart is here because he is very knowledgeable in Robert's rules, and he has a background in it. And I asked him to come to rate what we're doing so that we all know what the rules are, and he's agreed. Stuart, you want to take him?
His name is not Stuart.
It's
not Stuart. It's Bruce.
Bruce.
Even I know that.
It's close.
Okay.
It's close.
It's all right. It's okay. Continue on.
Okay. I want to start off by saying, as I look back, I'm very happy that the finance meeting is on Wednesdays, because my good night part of my life, Wednesday is the best day of the week, because Wednesday is Sunday at Carvel.
Ah, that's right.
And since we're all here and other meetings have had refreshments, I think we should all repair over the meeting to Carvel. It's 2 for 1, and you could have a Sunday. So,
I'm very familiar.
Having said all that, the minutes from the last meeting.
Where are they? It should have been.
It's like Barbara tried to sign in, but then she lost us.
No minutes. No. Did you have
Did we
minutes?
attach the minutes?
No. Did you have
We didn't. I thought we did. Well.
Was she given the minutes?
She had the minutes. I don't know why it's not attached, but I think we can.
Yeah, no, that's just people.
We can go forward.
It's Barbara trying to sign in.
So
We're going to schedule.
She's in.
You're going to schedule additional
Next
meetings.
one.
Okay.
There's Barbara.
Carolyn?
Hi, Barbara.
Hi, Barbara.
Hi. Hey, Cookie.
Cookie?
Yes, it's me.
Barbara, I just want to let you know that we are recording.
So don't say anything dirty again.
I don't think she hears it.
We're waiting in 1 second. I think we will have a copy of the minutes. They were very brief.
While we're waiting, you say schedule additional financial meetings.
Hold it. Good. All right, we start and go back to the minutes. Yes. Okay. I will, let me get going and we'll see what, I'll put this on speaker. In the middle. There you go. Americo?
Yeah.
Okay. Where do we have the sign-in sheet? We have to put Barbara and Americo on the sign.
I'll put it in.
Thank you.
And Cookie.
And Cookie.
Are they members or guests?
No, Barbara is a lifelong member. And I believe Cookie is a member, but I have to check that.
She is.
She should be on
May I
the.
look
Yes.
over for you?
Okay, I've got it.
Just here.
Yeah. Oh, that's it. We don't have what's in there.
I've got both of them.
So there was
Oh,
no-
she's on there.
so there was no meeting last month, and that's from the month before.
Sure is, okay. Let's pass it. There is a meeting.
I got you.
There is minutes from the
Just at the stop
prior.
on a highway and yell at a little old lady who was walking down the middle of the
I
street.
know we took it.
And she's telling me I took a pill. I don't know when I had.
Oh, my God.
Whether or not it was the stuff.
No,
that
I
they-
don't.
So
know if-
So I waited until she walked on the sidewalk.
Wait a second.
Then I drove away.
Hush back.
It was amazing.
Happens more than you think.
Here it-
Ah.
In the
Such a-
happens,
Yeah,
over.
they
You got a
have-
guy that reads a book and
It's
walks.
so short you could just read it.
I holler at him all the time. He doesn't
Yeah.
give you the
Why,
face.
that's June 22nd. That's wrong.
Couldn't find our house.
Yeah.
I think it's the wrong.
It's those
It's
tectonic
the meeting
plates
of-
are always shifting.
Yes, that was the last meeting.
That was your
We
last
had none in
meeting?
July.
Oh, good. We didn't have one in.
Let's see.
July.
Okay,
Good.
that's
I was out.
statistics. I mean, numbers.
So clear that we have such a good turnout.
Well, I expect you to interpret it and then you'll let me know what it means. Send me an email.
Oh, by the way, we approved, the insurance company that we have now for another year.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if you know or not.
It was $1.98, something like that. The rest goes to venison.
So get me another can. Ride the bike all day and I am thirsty.
Have a cool.
Very extensive minutes.
Yeah, well, we're gonna have longer minutes this time. We'll talk slower.
It goes past 1:30.
Thank you.
We'll read them. You could listen carefully.
Okay. Thank you.
Will the secretary please read a minute?
The secretary. Very brief.
Yeah.
Meeting was called to order at 1 p.m. Minutes were reviewed and accepted as presented. 5 committee members were present, which constitutes a quorum. A motion was made by Richard Handelsman, seconded by Olga Wolkenstein, for the treasurer to be allowed to invest in treasury bills. The vote was yes 7, no 0, abstain 0, and the motion carried. No updates were submitted by AMR or Breezeline. Academy Bus submitted information about their invoice. A specific case relating to AMR was discussed along with the procedures relating to the AMR contract. The meeting was adjourned at 2:14 p.m. Fully submitted by Joanne Roberts.
Take a look, they're not long, and if anybody has any corrections or adjustments.
I move that the minutes be accepted
As read.
as written.
Okay.
Have a vote. Did you move? Did we vote that it was accepted?
No,
No, you don't have to just.
You don't have to?
No, Robert's rules,
Administrative.
accepted as read.
accepted as read.
Yeah. If there are
Okay.
there are no
Corrections.
objections or corrections.
Okay,
Correct.
very good. So now we can move forward. And if you look, the first item is to schedule additional finance committee meetings prior to September 22nd meeting. And that's because there is a lot more that we're going to cover this year than we covered in the past. And in line with that, I submitted a schedule of vendors, which I don't expect you to really take a good look at now, but we will bring that up at the next meeting. In addition, I requested, but we still didn't get copies of every single contract that we have for review. So that should be forthcoming shortly. In that regard, I brought some calendars. I like to schedule additional meetings, and I brought the calendar. And as far as I'm concerned, the meeting doesn't have to be at 1 o'clock. We could go back to our old method on these meetings and have people come in during the day so that it's not a surprise. They may have made other plans. Now, I believe that 2 more meetings will transpire this month. One is the executive board, and the other is the delegate assembly.
Officers tomorrow.
Officers, there's officers.
Yeah, I just amended them. It
Right.
must have been a mental block.
Right.
So we have it right after this meeting will be the officers, then it'll be the executive board, and then it'll be the delegate assembly. But if I'm not mistaken, I can be corrected. There's a few days between the executive board and the delegate assembly. And those days would be open.
This is not, in general.
Well,
This
if
week
I'm
is,
not mistaken, tomorrow is the officers meeting, and the next day is the executive board, and it's not until
September 2nd.
September 2nd.
1 week.
1 week.
Okay, so I think that those days are open, and we could look at them. I brought 2 calendars, one regular and one in Yiddish, so in this a Jewish
the
holiday.
Jewish one.
Okay, I'll pass it around.
Anything scheduled on those days?
What days? What days are we talking about?
The
Time.
last week in the month.
Monday,
Last week
Tuesday,
of this month?
Start
No.
Monday, next Monday.
If I'm not mistaken,
Operations on the 30th.
if I'm not mistaken,
Mhm.
today is the 24th.
Yes, right,
Tomorrow is the 25th,
Correct.
which is offices.
right.
And after that is the 26th, which is Friday. So there you have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
The 30th is operations.
Tuesday's
Well,
operations.
Well, he's talking about the morning.
I'm talking about the morning. I'm talking
You wanna
about
go-
the
you wanna
morning.
make it to one
because
day. Okay.
I think
Well,
that this is a very important time.
Monday would have to be very late morning because staff is 9 to whenever.
Well,
Would have to be
That's the
after,
time.
say, 10:30.
all right, so we could do
If you
11
choose,
o'clock.
if you choose
I don't
that.
think that's a very logical thing to do.
Okay,
Well, I'd like to have a vote on that. I
Absolutely.
don't, in the past, when we had our first meeting, I passed out a potential budget. I'm not doing that today. Today, you're gonna have to work. Those budgets may not be correct. And it's important. I've sent out letters. I just got back a letter from AMR. There's others. And I think that we need to get a copy of all the contracts. They review on different days. And I also sent a letter email to Mr. Massey to reiterate what he said, to see what his best guess is on the insurance, which off the top of my head, we have an automatic 12% increase. And I think he said above that, you could expect a 30% increase. And I asked him to confirm that because that's a 42%.
No, I don't think.
Well, it's not a matter of thinking, Pat. I sent him an email. I'm waiting for his response. If I'm wrong, we'll put it in there.
The major increase was in the evaluations, the appraisals.
Well, that's
But he was very clear that that's not an automatic equation to the actual premium.
Well,
We never have those numbers till well into December.
that's right. And sometimes January, but the budget calls for now. And so just to be sure,
You need
rather
a
than
guess.
you and me,
Yeah, of course.
having it confirmed by Mr. Massey. So we'll have that for the next meeting. Okay, the other contracts are important. There's many more contracts than we would have reviewed before, because if you go back to the old budget, you will see it says as per contract, as per contract. And those should be figured in when they renew. Should they bids go out for other new contracts? And as I mentioned earlier, I'd like to do a sample of some of the vendors to see what their prognosis is for next year. So it's going to take work. So we could agree on, if you go back to when Anita was having the advisory committee, there was numerous meetings before they were solidified, and that we've been living with for a long time. And right now, we're going to live with a budget for a year, and we don't have the ability to adjust the budget quarterly, which would be much more accurate as you go along. I could tell you this, that David sent out 2,000 emails, right, asking for their suggestions, other people's suggestions, and some have come in with very good ones. Some don't really know the nature of what UGO's responsibility is and what WPRF's responsibility is. So we got a wish list of mixture, but there were some very good ones in there that we should consider, and that we will do some of them today. However, it's impossible without really getting more backup to see if it's valuable or not. Now, I purposely did not give out the last budgets because I got calls from these emails that said, we don't have a budget. Well, that's not true. There's a budget given every single month. If anybody reads the financial report, it's month to date, year to date against the budget. So what it tells me is that people may not be reading the budget. And you know, and I know from experience, at the Mahjong group and at the pools, you'll get all the complaints you ever heard. Oh, we're not involved, we can't do this, we can't do that, we want this. So I wanted to eliminate that and be very transparent, because I feel it's unfair just for a small group, including the delegate assembly, which has the ability for a line-by-line veto, to vote on it and give everybody a chance. Last year, if I recall, there was no changes to the budget as it was presented to the delegate assembly. However, I don't think they really had a long enough time to review it, although it's given to them beforehand. So what I want to do is make double sure everybody has it. And if there's a complaint or there's something we miss because we don't know everything, we should get that advice and look at it. And one of the reasons that I asked Bruce, who sometimes gets mixed up with Bruce Kaplan because they're both in my building, who has this heavy experience in Robert's Rules. He not only took it as a course in college, but in his prior position in another condominium, he was on the Was it the rules or
Rules
the,
Committee.
excuse me?
Rules Committee.
Rules Committee.
Okay, and there's a few other things. As I go back and look at the last 3 budgets before and after. So having said that,
Excuse me.
sorry,
If you and this committee
Yeah.
will read out an approved draft budget, I can send it out to 2,200 people. There is high probability that 95% of the delegates are on that list. So they will have exposure, but you've got what? You've got a week,
no, I don't.
or you got a month.
A month, and a month is a good period of time because letters will go out, confirmations will
But you
go.
gotta give me some.
What?
You gotta give me
Well-
this draft budget.
Well,
It's not,
I'm not prepared at this point to give a draft budget
all right,
because people tend to say, oh, okay. So I have to feel that that's not the proper way. And I could tell you this, that the format of the budget has been in the past will be changed. And one of the changes is going to be, because I got a lot of questions about it, the general. What's general? What are we paying for in the general? Okay, well, this budget will have every item in a separate area, which is general. Then one of the reasons I want for the contracts is a good portion of what in any budget, including in my own association's budget, you can't do anything about because it's under contract.
Mhm.
So what I get down to is what's available to change. I mean, you could have a budget for $8 million and there may be only 2 million that's subject to change. And I think that's the right way to address a budget, because you're not going to change at this point the bus contract that's under contract. You're not going to change the, what do you call it? There's a bunch of contracts that Donald has to take care of the pools, to take care of the rent, for instance, on the our lot. Okay, and that is coming up for renewal. So that may be it's just a bunch of stuff that could change the budget. Now, Olga sent me a 2-letter, said it's gotta be no change.
No increase.
Well, the answer is maybe it should be decreased, not only increased. And the big item,
Cutbacks.
what?
Cutbacks.
Well, before you decrease anything and get what you want and then be sorry, we should have a review of those items. And I'm leaving the big ones for last because you have to reach out and get what was passed. So as far as I'm concerned, I could start with some of these after we resolve when the next meetings are. And if we can't resolve it, I'll just pick it, those who can come.
Question.
You know,
What?
Barbara,
Yes, I have a question, Ed. When do you have to give the budget to the delegate assemblies for a vote?
October.
in October, and it has to go
Wait, let
in
me finish.
September.
So then in September, you should give them a copy of the draft so they can study it, so they can vote in October.
That's what he said.
I definitely will be, Barbara, but before that, it has to go to the officers committee and the executive board. And what we changed in the past, if you recall, we no longer have to do a whole budget over because we now have the ability to have a line item veto. So it's going to go to the offices and then to the executive board. Any other questions?
Yeah, now, I have a problem with that because it doesn't figure. Tomorrow, is offices. The next one isn't until the end of September.
That's
You're
right.
too late. You need it for tomorrow's offices and you don't have
No.
it,
Wrong.
okay?
Wrong. I have to present it to the officers next month. It's in the bylaws.
Yes, but that's after the September delegates meeting. How can you give it to them to read if they don't have it?
They will have it before, and I see a good percentage of the officers here, and they can have it by attending the meetings. You're wrong. Look at the bylaws. Bylaws says it has to be presented to the officers in
Yes.
September.
But
That's
does
not
it
what she's
have,
saying. She's saying it's
Yeah.
not enough time to present it to them.
there's no
We're working on
meeting
it.
of the
Like,
offices.
This week is the offices and the executive and everyone.
Right.
So 1 week, 1 month from tomorrow, the
Right.
next day is the next meeting. That's what she's saying. In essence, it would be the end of September.
Which is too late.
That's what she's saying.
Well, I gotta tell you, it's a good opinion. Change the bylaws. It's
Oh,
in the
No,
bylaws.
no, you're missing
no,
what
no,
she's
no.
saying.
We're not here to change the bylaws.
No, that's not what.
And it's always been given to the officers committee since I've been here on time.
But
But does it make it right? No.
I have to suggest that you need a special meeting of the officers
Right.
before delegates, whenever that is.
You
And you
will
have
always
to,
have that meeting. The officers meeting is before the delegate assembly in
which
September.
is tomorrow.
No, that doesn't count.
The delegates assembly is on the 2nd of September. The
Right.
offices aren't until the end of the month.
So-
How are they going to be presented to the delegates if you don't have it?
I will have it, dear. I will have it on time according to the bylaws. And that's one of the problems here. To change anything, it's like walking in mud. So if you want to change the bylaws, change them. It's not been late since I've been
I
here.
don't want to change the bylaws.
No, it's
I
not gonna
want the
happen.
delegates to see the budget
They will.
before October.
Listen, they will because it's going to be September that the officers committee got it.
That's tomorrow.
You're making a
no, wait,
mistake. I don't even want to waste my
Yeah,
time.
mine either.
Well,
Let's
so-
go on.
You have your opinion.
It's
it's
not
not-
an opinion, it's fact. Look at your calendar.
I have it in my head what the calendar is. And the calendar is the officers meeting in the bylaws says I have to present it to the officers in September and they present it to the delegate except.
And when will the delegates see it? They're gonna see it cold in
No, they
October.
won't. No, they won't.
Not if, you'll have to turn the calendar back then.
No, I won't have to.
All
turn
right,
my
okay,
calendar.
I give up.
Hello?
Excuse me, people, but I have to leave.
Okay.
Can you
Enjoy
recognize me,
yourself.
please?
Okay.
Are you raising your hand?
My hand's getting tired.
Missed.
Can you recognize me? I just want to ask you
hate
one
to
question.
leave.
Absolutely.
Okay, my question is,
Yeah.
I heard what you said, I heard what she said. But I also heard, and maybe I'm wrong, that the delegates have to get it a month ahead of time. Is that correct? They have to get a month to review it? No, that's the question. The answer is
Show
no.
me where it says they have to be.
Ed, that was a question, not a
Yeah,
statement.
as far as
So the
I-
question is no.
The question is,
Okay.
as far as I know, it's not in the bylaw.
Okay,
Simple as all that.
And I simply want to know how the delegates are going to see it in September.
they're not,
If
they're not.
they're not. They're going to see it cold in October.
Well,
It would seem that our feet are somewhat stuck in
Mud.
irrational concrete. This budget draft should be read out by this committee as soon as possible.
I agree, and that's why
All
I'm
right.
scheduling more meetings.
And that's fine. I would think, and don't forget, you have an electronic capability. You don't have to wait for the newspaper, although I think it should be in the newspaper.
I do too.
This can be sent out in a week. It could be sent out in 2 weeks to over 2,000 people. The thing that's needed is to have a consensualized draft.
It will be there, David, and,
But we don't have to wait till the officers committee meeting.
well,
Whatever the bylaws say, if they actually say that, it's irrational, because what is that? It's a week before the delegate assembly.
you know what, David, I personally agree with you. There's a lot of stuff in the bylaws that's irrational, but they're there. And I'm not waiting for the last day, and I don't mind you sending it out. You sent out 2,000 emails
I can,
to get suggestions, is that correct?
yes.
How many were received? Do you usually get?
You got every one that was received unless it was specifically WPRF, in which case I sent it to Eva.
Good. What I'm saying is, you know how many people
Very few.
of the 2,000 opened the email because you use Constant Contact.
No, I don't use MailChimp, but yes, I can tell you how many people opened the email. Yes, I can.
Good.
Maybe half. But
So
if you really need a number, I can get it to you.
Well, I'd like it because the answer is that's a portion. And for, let's say it's even 1,000, David, okay? Of that 1,000, we got maybe 10 or 15 responses.
Right.
Which on the same token, at the last delegate assembly, which I was sort of cut short, there was an announcement that the final audit was available, and you said anybody who wants it, just contact me. How many people contacted?
None.
Okay.
Zero.
Zero.
Unless they walked in.
Oh, 3 times 0 is still 0.
Yeah.
Okay. So the answer is, as an officer, I can only do my best, and the bylaws doesn't give us any other option except saying we're going to remove your privileges if you don't read this.
All right.
So I'd like to move along.
Stu has a question.
I don't have a question, I have an observation.
Yeah.
Why not prepare the budget? The thing that you were going to present, prepare it. We have a special meeting of the officers that a couple of days after you hand it out, because this way we have read it.
Good.
The reality is, I don't care if he sent out 50,000 emails, you're going to get less than 5% of the people who are getting the emails to read it. And of those people who get the emails and open it up, I would say that 1% will understand what's in there.
Correct.
So as far as I'm concerned, we, regardless of what the guidelines say, let's go ahead, you produce the document, we'll have a special meeting a few days after it, which we have looked at, and then we could move it on, and you'll have it ready for the delegates. I would venture to say you have, we're lucky if we get 100, we had 112, let's say we have 125 delegates. Of the 125 delegates, if you get 2% that actually read the budget and understand what's in there, you got a lot. And I know so what I'm saying is we have to move on whether they understand it or not. So forget about the stay here and that thing. Make the budget up, whatever it is that you're doing. Tell us it's ready. We'll come in the offices. We'll look at it. A few days later, we'll do what we have to do. And we'll have enough time to stick it in a newspaper or have a printed copy to give the delegates and tell them to go home and look at it. If they have any questions, come back to the office and we'll talk about it. And then in the following month, they vote on it, and that's the end of it.
Very good suggestion. I concur.
You could let me in.
I want to be very practical.
So do I.
But you're pushing it down the road.
I am not.
We have a day for this and a day for that. Screw it. Make the damn budget up. Go ahead and tell us it's ready. And we'll say, okay, it's ready on Wednesday. We'll meet on Friday. Give it to us on Thursday. We'll see you on Monday in the morning, in the afternoon, and look it over and say, I like this, I don't like that, I have a question, and we'll all agree. And then the next step is to provide it to the next group that has to look at it, who probably won't understand it. And then we'll give it to the delegate assembly and be put in the newspaper, and that's it. We have to be very practical.
Excuse me.
Ed Bruce is trying to get you.
Can I just respond? Stuart, I don't say I'm not pushing it. I'm asking you for additional meetings, okay? I'm willing to get it out as soon as possible.
Do it.
I am. I started with scheduling additional days, and it will take time. And all I'm looking at is the end of this month. I feel that we've had major changes, including the COVID, including the unusual 9% increase in the cost of living. So I would think that Joe Smith, who's a merchant, if he hasn't or she hasn't already raised the price, they're going to be forced to raise the price because their costs are going up.
So your budget reflects it.
Well, that's why I'm giving you, first of all, I'm giving you the list of vendors. It's not all. Next, we're going to get the contracts. And then we'll be able to move ahead with some intelligence rather than just guessing. Now, that budget can go up, it can go down, and it could go sideways. But I have to give it the best shot I got. And I don't think just giving something, because no one's going to read it and say, okay, but it could be wrong. It's just
anybody. We will read it here.
Good.
That's the first step, but you got to give it to us.
You said I'm not doing.
Ed, could I?
Bruce,
Point of order.
Bruce.
If I can use, that is technical term for what's supposed to be happening here.
What did you say?
Point of order.
Oh, yeah, right, point of order.
Okay,
Yeah.
just to be done.
I know.
Okay, to move this along, okay, from just a discussion of back and forth, okay, I suggest that Stuart, I'm saying that Stuart just simply put what you said in the form of a recommendation.
Mm-hmm.
I recommend that. And then once that recommendation has been adopted or understood, then you can open it for this debate. Right now, this discussion is premature. Okay, that you need to act on a concrete recommendation. And so I would suggest to move this along, that you be given the opportunity to make a formal recommendation. Let's have someone second that, and then it's open for discussion and even details. So what you said was very clear to me, put it in the form of a recommendation.
I recommend that you put together the budget that you're working on as quickly as possible, and then provide the copies to the officers. Give us 2 days to look it over, and then we'll have a meeting right here in this room, special officers meeting, and we'll look at it, we'll discuss it. And if there's anything that has to be adjusted, you'll make the adjustments. And then once we approve it, it'll go to the next step, which could, for the newspaper and to the ready for the delegate assembly. But post haste, it's got to be done. And as far as, and then the other observation is, no matter what happens, there's going to be at least a 10% increase in everything because of inflation. And I expect it to be built into the budget, and that's it. We'll accept it.
But there is
a second to that?
I
Yes, I
agree,
second.
but there are things that should be reduced, possibly will offset the increase. You're talking to the choir as soon as possible. The first item on my agenda was additional meetings. As far as putting it in the newspaper, it's fine with me. I didn't say it's going to go to exactly to the officers meeting next month. I said that's what the schedule is. You came up with.
We'll have a special officers meeting in 3 days, 4 days, 5 days. You just tell us, I just put together the budget. Let's have an officers meeting in 2 days after you receive it.
Absolutely.
They give you a chance to digest it. Boom. that takes care of that. What happens in the officers meeting the following month is nothing. That's my recommendation.
That's the motion, and it's been.
And I seconded it.
And now,
Yeah.
now technically.
Yeah, they
it's
talked about it
Yeah,
before
now
we.
technically, it's open for discussion. All the other discussion before that
Correct.
is.
Just
Is mute.
form,
Okay, now,
form, not substance.
Are there?
We're in discussion.
you're in discussion because you moved and seconded. No vote, motion and seconded.
Just a point that might be helpful, and I'm sure you know this, but those contracts are all in the database. And if you can't find them, Donald can help you. It's a button push. So those costs, they're kind of fixed. They can't come along and jack them up. So what is a relatively small percentage of non-fixed costs that we can really impact?
That's what I'm gonna get to, David.
Okay,
I already used Tupperware 2 weeks or so ago to ask Donald for that. But if you check the email, I sent you a copy of it. It's at least a week ago that I sent to Donald, you owe me the contracts, and he said, don't worry about it.
So I'm just saying, you can get them out
Yes,
of the database.
I know that.
All the contracts are in there.
I agree.
You finished with this?
I agree. However, while that's a physical job, there are other things that I have to concentrate on. Okay, so I asked Donald, and it's in writing. I put it in writing. I'm going to buy some Tupperware so I know what I'm talking about. Yes, ma'am.
Will you be presenting today the items that you've received, the wish list? so
Of
to
course,
speak?
if you
So
look
let
at
us know what line items you expect that are different. I sent one of them.
yes, you did.
Okay,
And if you look at the agenda, that's the next item.
okay.
Now,
So is discussion over?
So when's the meeting? We haven't finished on,
I'm gonna, if we can't use it, I'm gonna
That's what
pick
I'm
it.
saying.
Yes.
okay.
We're
Done.
jumping around, that's what happens.
Yeah,
in our-
okay.
Well, that's why we're not following Robert's
But
rules.
you're not
Okay.
either.
What?
You're not either. You started a whole discussion without having a recommendation, and second, none of us are following it.
Well,
Ask
I
your-
think,
ask your friend.
can I be clear? It's on there. I want to
Right.
get additional dates, and I put it on the agenda.
So discussion's ended.
So when,
It's fi-
when is the
If we
next,
have no recommendations,
When is
I'll
the
just pick the dates, those that.
go ahead, when's the next
those
date?
that-
Here's how you end it.
Here,
Here's how you
listen to
end it.
Bruce.
Okay.
Yes,
Someone calls for the question,
right.
and then you vote. All in favor? You count. All
Okay.
opposed. If
So-
you don't vote, if you're silent, essentially that's like you agree with the motion.
Okay, so let's.
Stewart's motion was longer than the entente cordial. I have yet to hear a concise motion.
He said,
No, actually, that.
Hey,
that's
see,
an excellent-
budget.
excellent
no,
suggestion.
it was a very good
Did
suggestion.
you record that? What is recommendation?
Oh, everything is recorded. I'm trying to write down something akin to what he's suggesting.
Bruce, I don't want to usurp Stewart, but what would be your concise motion so that we can move ahead?
You know, you gotta realize I have a 74-year-old brain.
I'm older than you.
And I have a 91-year-old brain.
And I'm right behind him, and I understand.
So I'm not, but
Have a
I'm not gonna
second.
give I'll shrink it down. I will say the budget will be prepared as quickly as possible, hopefully in a few days, the way you're talking about it, and print it up, and 2 days after the budget, or print the budget, give it to the officers, and 2 days after you give it to the officers, we will have an officers meeting.
Okay, that's the recommendation.
That's the recommendation.
And I second it.
We have a second.
Doesn't,
So,
Discussion,
We had discussion over and over.
Well,
well, I
one
wasn't
word,
recognized.
excuse me, one word is in a few days. In other words, it will be prepared as quickly as possible.
That's not good.
Well, that's what I suggested, so you clean that up. Okay, that's fine, as soon as possible.
Good. Can we go on? Is a vote here?
Barbara did not Was not
Barbara,
recognized.
Barbara.
I have
Well,
my
I don't
hand up,
look
but
at
I
it. She
see-
hasn't got her glasses on. I can't recognize. She gotta get a better camera.
Go ahead, Barbara.
Okay, okay to talk?
Yes.
Okay. All I'm gonna say is whatever you decide, remember something, Ed, you have a committee. Before it even goes to the offices, you have to have a meeting with your committee to approve it to go to the offices.
Of course, that's why
I
I'm
just
calling
wanted-
for meetings.
I'm just trying to make sure the time element, that's all.
Well, that's why I'm asking for more meetings, okay?
Got a date.
And a date. And
Yes,
if I'm
date.
not mistaken, budget as presented goes to the officers who either approve
Okay.
or not approve.
Yeah.
It goes to the delegate assembly, either they approve or not approve, and it goes to the executive board. On the officers level and on the executive board level, the bylaws doesn't call for change.
Questions and comments?
Questions, be cool.
Yes, sir.
Before you set any dates, I believe you're gonna find that there are some sort of meetings on every single day next week.
But
So you wanna make sure you're not generating an automatic conflict.
Somebody go get,
well, that's why I
You
said.
need that schedule in front of you.
would you like me to get the schedule?
Excuse me, David, excuse me.
Would you like a schedule?
That's why I started off with, we should not look just to do it at 1 o'clock to do
No,
it.
it's fine.
And that way, it's not going to interfere with someone's medical or something else that hasn't been planned on. So, having said that,
Okay,
we can't see, I just want to come to a conclusion of dates, and if we can't, I will pick the dates. You can make it, you can't.
You want, what you could do is you could amend the motion and insert dates. for-
Fine.
Well, we have to put some dates on the table.
Well, Julie,
When you come up, Stuart said that when you come up with a budget, it goes to the officers. Doesn't it have to go to the finance committee first?
This is the
Yes.
finance.
you haven't
I
got
know,
Barbara,
but
but
we
you
don't
haven't
have
got it.
anything, we don't have anything to approve.
Richard, this is the finance.
We
Well,
don't
where's the
have your
budget?
budget.
There, listen,
oh my God.
that's why
please.
we're here. Don't say where's the budget. The budget is gonna be prepared.
Okay,
It has not been prepared that way before. Someone came in, did all your work, you nodded, and that was it. No good.
all right.
In my mind, this is the way I see it. Very simple. You prepared the budget.
I agree.
The following, as soon as the budget is prepared, you get a date, couple of days after, and have a finance meeting.
You know what?
As soon as the finance meeting is over, 2 days after that, you have a special meeting with the officers, and that takes care of everything. Within 3 or 4 days, it's all done. Or you could have the finance meeting at 1 and the offices at 2, or at 11 and 12 or 1 the same day, and that's it.
Stuart, I think we agreed on
Can we
that.
just go with your
With-
dates?
So
when's the
the
next
first step
meeting?
is you've got to give us something to look at
Well, that's true.
sooner than later.
How about tomorrow morning at 6 o'clock?
Fine.
Hey, you're not kidding. I get up at 5. It doesn't make any difference to
I
me.
am looking at the calendar. I'm gonna settle this issue. I
Okay.
put it up for,
It's only
I
55
am going
minutes
to pick
late.
the date so we can move forward.
Okay.
We have the Zoom now, and I will definitely pick it during the day. So what I'm looking at is the end of August, which is the, wait a second, the 26th is Friday, and unless I'm mistaken, that's the last scheduled meeting for
That's it.
August.
That's the executive
No,
board.
no.
That's
No,
executive
what
board.
about,
The 30th is the last scheduled meeting. It's the operations. August 30th.
Next Tuesday.
He said this.
30th, right?
Well, operations is at night, and I didn't get that far.
At night.
Nice.
So 1 o'clock.
That's to me night.
All right, so give us the date.
I'm going to pick each day to start, which is, let's go to Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday of the next week.
May I make a suggestion?
And at 10 o'clock.
Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday at 10.
Right.
Don't you think we should have Carolyn here so she can coincide with her calendar? And with
I'm
you?
having it in the morning.
Okay.
Monday morning is staff.
So
Right,
I'll
that's-
have it at 11.
Tuesday morning, I don't recall anything Tuesday. And what did you say? Wednesday?
Yeah.
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
I don't remember.
And
Good night.
if it changes, we'll let everybody know, but I think it's an hour and we haven't finished, so. David, I don't want to not recognize you.
Right.
I could see you in the
I'm glad
street and
that,
recognize you.
A little more than 45 minutes, we're finally getting a date.
That's true.
Anyway, on Tuesday, I don't think you can schedule that for sure because that meeting of operations might start early. Monica might start doing the WPRF budget on Tuesday the 3rd.
She will, yes.
Oh, yeah.
That is
Well,
budget Tuesday, so
Is it, what
How about
time,
late afternoon?
wait, what time is it scheduled? for?
1 o'clock.
Now, wait a second, let me finish while everybody's interjecting here. It's normally at 1 o'clock, but she said at the last meeting, they're gonna start the budget, which normally, when we do budgets, it starts at 10 o'clock. I'm
Well,
not saying that's
That's true.
etched in stone, but you got.
right, I agree with you, things change. I'm gonna schedule it now, and if it changes, we'll change.
Don't take.
We could always have dinner at the Rain Dancer, which is paid for.
There we go.
And I think we'll get a good turnout, even if we held it during the,
Where's your bagel and lox you keep talking about?
I was gonna say Ruth Chris, but I just wanted to keep the first. Having said all that, would you make a note that it's scheduled for,
Is this the finance committee meeting that we're meeting?
excuse me?
How are we wording this? It was Stuart's.
Well, Stuart is a motion, this is just an announcement when the meetings are gonna be.
Finance meeting.
Finance meeting.
Fine.
Okay.
Finance
What-
meeting start
what
with Monday,
date-
what date is that?
What date have you picked?
August what?
29.
August 29.
29th, 30th, and
Don't pick
31st.
the 30th. That's the worst possible day,
Tell me
Tuesday.
why.
Because of the WPRF budget, which could start in the morning. Don't take a
We
chance.
were not
Well, I
notified
won't
of
take
that.
a chance. I will call Eva and ask her if she intends.
There you go.
It's not Eva, it's Monica.
I don't care who it is.
Well,
Okay, fine.
I will call Monica
I
and
would
ask her if she's
would
changing
remind
the
you.
date.
That line by line,
yeah,
that goes on for hours.
3 days.
They've even brought food in, that thing
Yeah,
goes
they
on.
Well,
so
I
long.
think
They
we
did.
should do the same thing,
They
but
did.
I would get better food.
They did.
Question,
I'm on your side.
question. Ed,
At this moment,
Barbara asking a
Ed.
question.
I just want to clarify, you said the 29th at 11, the 30th at 10, and the 31st at 10, am I correct?
absolutely.
Okay, as far as the ops, I'm on the ops. I have heard nothing other than 1 o'clock.
Barbara, I agree with you, but she did say at the last operations meeting, she asked if we could start doing the finance.
Well, I think we
And I
put
sent her
that to
an
bed.
email today asking if the time is going to change. I'm only bringing it up because if you say everybody's gonna be here on Tuesday, then you may have to cancel it on Tuesday.
Yeah.
For operations, if they know they're going to have the meeting earlier, we all should have been notified because people make appointments.
Barbara, I'm not arguing. I'm just telling you what was presented at the last operations meeting.
Wow.
We haven't
Well,
received anything.
I hear you. All it takes is a phone call and get the,
Okay, an hour to get these dates.
I'm scheduling it. If it changes, you'll be notified.
All right. Moving on.
Moving on.
You do need to
Vote.
vote on the
You need a
motion.
vote.
So I'm saying, moving on.
Vote on the motion.
Call for a vote.
Okay, as far as the amendment.
I don't need a vote for picking.
We just said that.
Is there
No.
a general agreement on?
We spent an hour, which could have been done in 5 minutes.
Two people talking.
It's ridiculous.
And who took up all that time?
Okay,
Are we gonna take a vote or not
a vote on what?
on Stewart's motion? That was seconded and discussed.
Do you have to have a motion? You made the motion, I agree.
You're,
I
Yes.
made a suggestion, he said to put it into a motion.
Vote on the motion.
It's just
Okay, let's
semantics.
vote.
Okay.
Call the roll.
All in favor, say aye.
Wait,
With the motion.
No,
read
no, no.
your best version, Joanne, of the
He's the
motion.
worst.
Okay,
Do what you can.
He thinks he can.
Read the motion.
as quickly as possible, Stuart Richland made a motion as quickly as possible to have the treasurer produce a proposed budget and submit submit it to the officers who will have a special meeting 2 days later, amended with the finance committee will meet at 11 o'clock on August 29th, at 10 o'clock on August 30th, and at 10 o'clock on August 31st.
Wow.
Does that barely represent what it is we're trying to agree on?
pretty much.
So it's fine by me.
Pretty much.
I'm gonna take the vote. Barbara?
I'm not going any.
Barbara?
Barbara, how do you vote? You're mute. You have to unmute.
Unmute.
Okay, I vote for those
So
3
yes.
days.
I'm sorry, say it
It's
again.
a yes or no.
Are we voting on for the 3 days?
No, we're voting on the motion.
Did you not, did you hear the
didn't
way I
hear
read
I
it?
get the motion, no.
Oh, God.
Barbara, can you hear me?
I can.
All right.
The motion.
Stuart made a motion to, as quickly as possible, have the treasurer produce a proposed budget and submit it to the officers who will have a special meeting 2 days later. It was amended that the finance committee meet 11 a.m. on August 28th, 10 a.m. August 30th, and 10 a.m. August 31st. That's
Yeah.
the motion. You're voting
Yeah.
yes. Thank you.
Did you attend August 28th? That's a Sunday.
Joanne,
No,
I think
29th.
that's August
29th.
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 We all know. Cookie, can you hear?
Yeah,
Vote.
okay, Barbara, vote.
She did.
Yes,
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Richard Handelsman,
Yes,
Americo's on the phone?
I don't know if he's still on. What happened to you, Americo?
He's not present.
Okay, go ahead.
Olga is not present. John Malloy
Yes.
and
Cookie.
officers present. David Israel,
Yes.
Ed Grossman,
Ed,
yes or no?
I'm gonna abstain.
No, you
No,
can't.
yes.
you can't.
John is not here.
now Cookie,
Stuart Richard.
Yes.
Pastor's not here. Patricia Caputo.
Absolutely.
Cookie.
And I'm voting yes.
Cookie.
I did that already.
Oh, you did?
What about David?
What about David? Isn't he on the committee? No?
I don't know.
Okay, all right.
You're not on the committee.
And he does.
Okay, the motion carries with 9 votes yes.
Okay,
Thank God.
moving on.
Moving on.
Before we move on, David, could you publish that on your blog so everybody knows there's another meeting?
If someone writes the entire diatribe down for the, yes,
Good,
I can.
thank you.
Okay. Now, next.
Yes, and I'm not just picking and choosing. This is a random choice of what came in. And I had it all prepared, but let's go here It's short. And I just picked it out.
Okay, well,
I think the treasurer should be a paid position.
I didn't say that.
No, I second
We
that
could afford
motion,
$1.
followed by the editor-in-chief of the paper.
Well, you could propose that. You didn't send it in.
All right, let's move on.
Let's
It's
move
already
on.
after 2.
Let's move on.
We can accomplish something.
All right, what's next?
Okay. I have the following request to be included in the 2023 budget, and that was from Americo. There has been and will be in the future vehicles speeding on the internal roads of the village. Therefore, I propose that the village implement at least at the last 3 main roads, north, south, and west, radar speed indicator signs, which one sees in many villages to control vehicle speed while driving on the main road.
This takes a resolution of the delegate assembly and the establishment of a fining committee.
Well,
We used to do this, if you go back far enough, a guy by the name of Paul Spivak. We actually used to have the guard force give a ticket. But you need a vote. You need a vote by the delegates to do that.
well,
You can't even begin. I mean, yes, it can originate, but it didn't last long. I'll tell you that.
The purview of the finance
Well,
committee?
There were a lot of fights and it was terminated. We have all this in the database. It didn't work out well.
I hear you, David.
Does anyone here remember Paul Spivak?
No.
No, okay.
I remember.
Yeah, he orchestrated that idea, and it was done for a while. You got to go back 30+ years now.
No, she's resting.
Well,
28.
what is being proposed here, when you say you need a voted or a change in the bylaws, is asking to put an amount in.
What?
To do that. It's not saying it's asking, and if the delegates vote for it, that's there.
All right, I would just suggest, you know, we have a contract with PBSO to enforce traffic laws in here.
Right.
It would seem to me a more logical way to do that.
Security.
And there is no additional cost and there is no conflict by a hired guard force stopping people on our roads. I'm telling you, there was a lot of problems with it. We could reiterate to PBSO. I would remind Barbara, who I'm sure remembers, who vigorously supported PBSO enforcing the speed limit, and on the way home from the meeting got a speeding ticket.
But I think she forgot. I saw her 2 times when she in the village doing about 65 miles an hour.
Oh, boy.
That's been proposed. Yes.
Would it be proper at this meeting to approve it or not approve it, to put it as a line item or not at this time?
I think it should start with advisory. If you're serious about reinitiating that, enforcing traffic laws in here,
Then if it has to go to advisory, it can't be on this budget until advisory talks about it.
Are you talking
Police
about?
department put in a sign across the street from Somerset K,
Yeah.
which told the drivers how fast they were going. I sat there every day and watched what went on. Virtually no one paid attention to the traffic sign, and they all zipped by. And so, in reality, you live in a world where you can put up any sign you want, and people, especially with the change in the population that you have here in Century Village, no one's going, the majority of people are going to go where they want to go at the speed they're going to go. They're going to cross the double yellow lines. They're going to, people, like I said, the old woman was walking down the middle of the street.
Yeah.
And how often have you, and then the guy with the book is always there, no matter how you pull down a window and scream at him, he looks at you and gives you the finger. There are people here who will not follow the rules, period. And to spend the money on that is a waste of time.
I agree.
I had requested prior to this an electronic sign as you come in, which listed the meetings and all the things that are going on. We even had a company bring 3 or 4 signs we went to at fairly recently, so we know what it's going to cost. You have to keep your fingers crossed that people are going to read it. Well, just like your budget, I'm going to tell you how many people are going to read your budget at the delegate assembly.
How many people
I don't want to
read their bylaws?
And then the crazies we have in this world, who knows? You're going to stop them and say, I'm going to write you a ticket? Nah. Well, you're going to say, yeah, bingo, goodbye. And they're on their way.
Get a copy of Barbara's ticket. How much did you pay?
Ed, come on. Bruce is trying to talk to you.
Wow. Sit over there so I can see.
Yeah, why don't you sit next to him if you want?
I won't kill you.
That would make me too official. You'd have to double my salary. Okay. All right. First of all, we're having a discussion for something that isn't even on the table.
Okay. Keep doing
it. Okay. Ed made a suggestion. If someone wants to make a motion, then you have the discussion. As far as the crazies are concerned, okay, I'm a by the book person. Okay, I slowed someone down in my neighborhood, Wellington 10. The guy stopped, rolled his window down. He says, "Oh, I forgot. I thought I was living in Brooklyn." You know, so I know we have the offenders there. So if you want to address it, someone needs to put a motion.
Barbara says she'll put it together. Barbara.
I have a motion. My hand's been up, but I don't think anybody sees it.
I see it.
I
We
can make a
definitely see
motion not to put that in the budget. And like David said, Spivak, I remember that, David, back then. It causes nothing but a headache.
You can't make a negative motion.
That we should not.
That's a negative motion. I don't think you can do that.
Make a motion and vote.
All right, make it the other way, whatever you want to do.
Well, making a motion, Barbara. Just making a motion that you said that we not reconsider.
No, you can't make a negative motion.
You can, but it makes it tough.
I tell you what, it makes it easier. I withdraw everything I said. What's the next recommendation? We're just hearing it from you. I'm sorry, I should not have
Why did you say
made an observation.
If everyone feels that way.
Okay, what's the second comment?
Right. That's the third. The first was that I should get paid.
Okay.
No one
okay.
accept that either.
No, it's moved to exclude. That's not. Right?
Okay.
If there's a consensus,
I have a motion that's to Ed Black.
Then just simply move on.
We got 2 different voices going on.
Okay.
You're right.
If there's a consensus to not reconsider the policy, then just move on.
That's right.
That's it. We're moving on.
That's what we're doing.
Everyone's
Aye.
Okay.
Please.
The next suggestion comes to Ed Black, but I'll take it anyway. And to Dave. And it is from a lady whose email is Schmata. In French, that means rag. But we know that's not the case. Okay, so I could read on. Before COVID set in and all social events were postponed or canceled, I planned a centennial celebration, the volunteer luncheon and the installation party. The centennial party cost a minimal amount because we have so few 100-year-olds living in the village. I think if you got 10, that's more than so few.
Don't had 8.
Well, that's a miracle.
There's more.
A budget line of 500 would be sufficient. We have not had an installation party in a number of years, and if we are able to have such a celebration. The expenditure for the Yugo is a minimal because all residents and guests pay their own way. The expenditure for Yugo is minimum. I suggest budgeting whatever figure was in the last Yugo budget would cover the incidental expense such as music, celebrating, toast, etc. As for the volunteer party, I suggest using the budget and the last budget. I believe the last party cost $4,200.
What?
Keep in mind that catering costs have skyrocketed and we have fewer volunteers to invite. If you need more information, please let me know. If you want me to send the infos to the treasurer, Bobby Levin. I don't think if she sends it to Ed Black, it's going to do any good whatsoever.
You don't know until you try.
Can I come?
Yes.
What I heard, unless I am a little old, that the people will be paying for their own food and the guests. So what costs $4,200?
No, that's a different celebration. This is volunteer.
Installation was the one you're thinking.
Oh, maybe that's why some people.
Yeah, no, that's why it really was no cost.
Yeah. Some people were aren't coming now. I know why.
All I could tell you is,
okay,
when you get to the bottom line, this is a request for $4,200. No matter. Okay, that's what I want to say.
Really?
Right.
This gentleman in the back.
Go ahead.
David Bowes.
2 years prior, I sent in a request for that, and it encompasses installation, volunteer luncheon, centenarian, and also part of the newcomers meeting that we had anything to do with. I think last year, the last prior 2 years, I think it was $6,000 that was put in the budget. And I don't think we used any of it, or hardly any of it. I think probably, if you look back on that one line item, I think I asked for a budget of $6,000 and for this year. And I think that would probably be enough for next year as well.
Anybody?
You might have that information.
Yes, sir, I do. Last year was $6,000. This year, I'm proposing that we move CERT into that line item as well with volunteers. Since it essentially
that's a separate committee though, Chris.
Okay.
But that's up to you guys. I'm not involved in that.
But I think that was part of the request, was that it remain at $6,000. At least that was my understanding from the email request.
I think, I'm sorry, David, I think that you can't go by last year because last year it could have been reduced in attendance because of the COVID.
Exactly.
I think
we didn't use any of it last year.
No.
What I think, I hear you, Chris. I'm sorry if I cut you off. In this budget, the bottom line is a request for $4,200, right?
Yes.
That's the bottom line. If you feel that this is an expense, whether it's used for taking out the offices or it's for whatever, the question is, in this coming year's budget, do you feel $4,200 is a necessary cost? That's the way, Mr. Israel.
I think because of this plague, which despite popular opinion apparently is not over, I think any activity that throws lots of people together into close proximity is a big mistake and might even subject us to a liability. God forbid someone should get sick at one of these great gatherings. I think until it comes down from CDC or NIH that this thing is functionally over, we shouldn't have these gatherings at all. It's not about the money at this point.
Do you want to make a motion, David?
No, I have no problem on this. It's a personal opinion. I move that this not be done.
When you say this,
the thing you read to us.
Okay.
I seconded.
Wait. Go ahead.
It's got us to be seconded first.
Well,
Yeah.
put it up for discussion and.
Substitute that paragraph for this, because I don't remember it all.
Okay, basically it's for parties.
Yeah.
That's what it comes to. And the only question I have in your motion, David, is do you want to leave a diminutive amount?
A diminutive amount.
Right, like a $500 or $1,000 for.
No. All enough.
That's up to you. If you don't know.
No.
The motion is made, is it seconded?
Yeah.
What's the motion?
Yes.
What's the motion?
The motion is to eliminate.
Eliminate.
No, first I seconded, now we can discuss.
Now we can
Yes.
discuss, yes.
What was the motion?
The motion is.
To eliminate.
To eliminate.
You know, read it out. The volunteer luncheon, the CERT luncheon, all of these gatherings.
Events,
So
all
all future events like I.
Do you want me to pass this around?
No,
we understand.
No, we understand.
Yeah, is there a single word?
Barbara, did you understand it?
Is there a single word that encompasses the various?
Yeah, all future events.
Events?
Social
Extracurricular.
events.
Oh,
Social events.
Everybody's tailing off on this 4,200. You didn't even read that right, correct?
I didn't.
2 years ago, that's $4,200.
That's what I said.
No, you're saying that's all she asked for. The only thing that you want to talk about, you want to eliminate the budget for the social committee.
Yes.
That's what I said. You
Yes.
can repeat it.
Social event, beautiful.
Right, that's what I said.
$6,000 last year.
That encompasses
Oh, when I
it.
said it, you didn't hear it. When the man said it, you heard it.
If you hit him again, you're gonna be sued. Okay, we got that on
There's a
tape.
time to vote.
Okay, the motion is made to eliminate it.
To eliminate
All
social events.
Yes,
future social events.
if there's no.
This year,
And if
this
you want
year.
a justification, until such time as COVID-19 is no longer a threat. But
Oh, boy, that's.
personally, I suspect that's forever, but
Just say this year.
I need,
For this year.
I'm
yeah,
waiting
for this year.
For this year, for this year.
Okay, because until COVID's over, and then it's
No,
over,
we
you
said,
spend
just
5,000.
for this year, we're spending too much time.
For the that's amended for the 2023 budget.
Right.
That sort of nails it down.
Call the
I second it.
Okay.
Call the vote.
Call a vote, Secretary.
Your Robert's Rules guy has something to say.
No, I was just gonna say, you said it's amended. Okay, is that agreeable with you and
Yeah.
you?
Oh, yes.
Okay, then,
Sorry.
then you can move on.
So I can see you. They can't kill you, he'll protect you.
David Israel motions to eliminate the budget for the social events for 2023. Barbara?
No.
Cookie?
Yes.
Richard?
Yes.
I don't, is America online?
No.
No, you just have
He's
to
off.
pass them this.
No, we still have a quorum without Olga and America.
Do we still have a quorum?
Sorry. Oh, I'm sorry, John. John, I forgot to write him.
Maloney, yes.
Okay, John.
I don't even think so, maybe, but you
Ron
can check.
is-
You can check it.
John?
Yes.
Have 4 people.
David?
Yes. Which
Ed
day?
Grossman?
Yes.
Stewart?
Yes.
Yes.
And I'm voting yes. The motion carries with a vote of
8-1.
Oh, he's right there. See? We sure have it.
I'm glad we got through that one. I just want to remind everybody, this is a line item veto. We could take it out and it could come back in at the delegate assembly, but I'm glad we got through that one.
Could we do mine? It's very short.
Before you go any further on that,
Excuse me?
before you go any
Do
further,
mine,
would somebody
it's very
let Bobby
short.
know about that decision, because she's the chairman of the social committee.
I have
Yes.
yes.
Mr. Bob Rivera, who is not
Not
here, sent in 7 items.
Oh, God.
If you want, we could just make a quick copy. I'll read it. It appears we have lost against Benison in our bid to get the contract nullified, and we will have to pay for their HVA system. We really need to start looking at the budget cuts to make up for it. So,
Wait. You want to find $3.7 million in Yugo budget cuts to make up for the WPRF charge?
the answer is, that's wrong.
Okay.
Okay. next.
That suggestion doesn't recognize that the money would be out of our reserves at
Doesn't belong at
WPRF.
this committee.
At WPRF,
At the
their budget, not our
Yes.
budget.
Yes.
Okay, 2, transportation.
Okay.
Oh, that's me.
Everybody has to ride a motorcycle before you get on the bus. It's my observation.
Okay, let's hear what.
Some of the redundant destinations need to be reworked, i.e. multiple buses at destinations such as Publix at the same time, and many of 3 are there at the same time.
That's transportation.
I
I
think,
am transportation. We have to leave it for transportation.
well, I think that was suggested at the Transportation Committee that we should get a revised schedule after a study. And to elaborate it, I think we had made a recommendation of having a scanner so that we have the information to review and adjust the schedule, because right now it's just a shot in the dark. Go ahead, Mr. Israel.
Just some background. We used to have scanners on the bus.
Right.
Because I remember working with Ed Black to get them put in there. And you came in and you swiped your ID card and it read the barcode. And I will say, in support of what you said, that information was invaluable in streamlining the schedules.
Okay, so.
The scanners were not that expensive, but they were just not transferred. They should have been. We shouldn't have left them in that, whoever it was we had. We should have pulled those scanners, but scheduling of complex transportation systems is no simple task, and you need data to do it.
Exactly.
So if you want to put a budget line in, it's to install scanners in the buses and gather the data. You know, you can't ask transportation to just do that ad hoc without data. All right.
What we're missing is we could put it in, but we should try to get an estimate to put a number in.
Yes.
So I think first do we agree, and then if we agree for one of the next, not tomorrow, the next meeting, but before we finish, we should get a number.
Yeah, I agree.
Is it this committee's job to make a suggestion to put in scanners, or is it
It's
transportation?
It's my committee's transportation.
Right,
So
transportation.
It doesn't really belong here right now.
Well, after transportation.
They should gather the data,
And then
and then we can make
it
it
the money.
right.
Okay.
So actually, Ed, you can offload this because it's not germane to this.
No,
No,
it
it
is
isn't.
germane. I take exception.
Why?
I am not saying anything except, do we provide the money? And if we provide the money, we should have an item what it cost us. That's the cost. The transportation committee has asked for it. I was there. It was promised to us. We never got it. All I'm saying, that's an expense. An expense belongs in the budget if we agree, and then we will have to get an estimate and we'll put it in as a line item.
Can the transportation committee put that together and bring it back to this?
Well, if we put it in and it's not approved, then we'll have an extra $8
from Academy.
That's what I was going to just send them an email because I am brand new. I had 2 or 3 meetings and I'll have to get together with Academy. I have no answers.
I know you do, because if I could talk, they don't answer you. I think I've said it 26 times. I'll say it 27. I was communicating with Omar in March about getting additional information on the buses. I sent them an email, we had a discussion, I sent them another email, and guess what? I didn't get an answer, so I called him, I brought it up. And you know what? I was told he couldn't give it to me because he was informed not to release information.
Wow.
I sent David a copy of that, and I sent Donald, because I don't accept it as being a fact, but he named Donald as the person who said, don't give the information. So right now, they haven't given the information. So it's up to you. I'm just saying what we're talking about.
After this meeting, if you don't mind me interrupting, because it's really a lot of time has gone by. After the meeting, you tell me exactly what you want, and I will do an email. But I think that it doesn't belong on the table now. Is that correct?
I hear it, so I'm reading what he's saying.
Okay. So
I shall go further, and we could adjourn and have a further meeting.
No.
What's the next
continue? Come on, let's continue.
Oh, don't rush. This is a whole year. $8 million is at stake.
We do have a life here. I don't want to say something like
It wasn't more than $1,000. Wasn't more than $1,000.
What for the
to put 6 or 7 scanners out?
Whatever it costs, I think the result will be worth the money.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Do mine next. The delegates will love it.
Our job is to do our job. If the delegates don't like it, they'll vote against it.
Correct.
They have. This has nothing, how much, this is keep the movie schedule as it is currently and not increase it. I think that's WPR.
I sent that one to WPR.
Yeah, that's WPR.
Salary freeze for the first 6 months of the next
WPRF
fiscal year for paid employees. I believe that's also
You've got 2 paid employees here.
Well, I count
here.
on having 8 more, but you know.
It's not here. It's
no.
You're talking mostly about
roadway replacement, not even considered for the next 3 to 5 years. Current repairs on the road should suffice. I've heard that before. It's up to you. But I would be loath. We reduced it $3 million last year. The last real report was from Simmons and White, and that was in 2012. And before I would say yes or no this time, I was reaching out to Simmons and White because they said, from my recollection, 10 years was the useful life.
Okay.
It's been beyond 10 years. We could cut that off because it makes a lot of sense if we're only going to earn $1,000 in interest for 12 months. So that's contingent on their report and us getting almost 150,000. Yes, sir.
This committee would, I would think, have to hear from Dominique's.
I can't hear you, I'm
committee.
sorry.
This committee would have to hear from Dominique's bids and acquisitions if we need to extend or not extend road repairs. That's the committee that knows everything about the road repairs. They will come to us and say yes or no, and then we can act on the money.
That's a good suggestion, and every department head and every officer got the same request to send us information. Now, I don't doubt Dominique's expertise, but we had an extensive report from Simmons and White, and they did a subsequent report, and I feel, while Dominique is an architect and a learned one, I feel that we should get some sort of review from Simmons and White, which we paid a tremendous amount of money. However, the answer to their own suggestions cost us $6,000. So for us to just shoot it off the top of our head, don't forget we also had core samples taken last time. And I think what's being counted on here is our patch and run situation. Now, I'm not saying the whole village needs to be redone, but, and I think we all recognize from what was reported in our show that the main road is in pretty good condition. But the other roads, to say they're in good condition is just not true. Now, we have the money. I brought it up before. It's not earning buckus. I know it costs more, but if you keep waiting, what we have in the bank keeps going down from its purchasing power, and the repair keeps going up. So you got a double negative. So I think the next, I hope to get in a report, a response from Simmons and White, because that's exactly 10 years.
Based on the patching we're doing, and we're patching all the time, can we look at, say, the last 3 or 5 years and extrapolate out a number of expected repairs?
Yes.
Statistically, obviously,
okay.
it's not perfect.
I think we should get a number from Donald, who is handling that.
I don't know if he will know, but I would think right out of QuickBooks, based on the expenses, you guys could make an estimate.
Except
Dominic will give you information on the longevity of the overlay. As you say, on the main roads, it looks pretty good, but M&M undoubtedly did a half-ass job when they got back into the village. And a lot of those roads are falling apart.
I agree.
From day one.
I agree. I could tell you in front of Wellington, the roads were 100% better before they were done. Yeah. So whoever gives the information, I welcome it, but I do feel a call to Simmons and White, who's the professional, to see what they would charge. So I think that's not a bad suggestion, but we really need to have the information.
I want to make that a motion.
You want to make that a motion?
No.
Word is
Does anyone want to make that a
motion?
Anyone want to make that a motion? David, you seem to have an understanding of it.
On the Simmons and White?
Yes.
Yeah, I have no problem to move that we engage Simmons and White to make a current assessment of the condition of the roads.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Now, I don't know what that would cost, but I seem to recall it was $5 or $6K.
$6K to review it.
Yeah. So yeah, I'll make that motion for sure.
Okay, is there any further discussion? David.
Simmons and White and asphalt replacement repair company?
Among
They don't do the work, they're just engineers.
right.
They don't do the work?
Engineers,
That's
They do.
what I'm asking.
And actually,
right.
That's fine.
It's an engineering firm.
it's strictly
I
engineering.
thought we had one done
Who?
2 years ago.
You had
You had
a,
one done,
it
when you had
wa-
core samples done.
no core samples, definitely no
Yes,
core
no,
samples.
You had someone here that did.
It was a cursory review
Yeah.
of just topical, and I think it cost us $1,000 or $2,000.
30 or 40 core samples. I don't remember who did it.
Yes, and that was
Would
federal.
be that much difference between 2 years?
No, we did it 10 years ago,
No, you had something done here 2 years
not
ago.
core samples.
I said core samples, but this is, you
No.
also said you had an inspection done.
Federal did the core samples.
But who did you have to come take a look at the roadway? It was about 2 years ago.
I did, in fact, last year, I had a vendor come and look at the roadway and give us, if you recall, their best estimate of what it would to do the entire roads over, okay?
My question, is it worth it to have it done since you only had it done 2 years ago?
No, it's a completely different story. Let me explain to you. What I asked them to give me an estimate of what it would cost today, which was last year, and as opposed to what it cost us in 2011 and 12. And the same representative who I spoke to in 2010 and 11 came by and she said, we didn't do the job. I asked her, would you look at a similar job around that time, you know, a large condominium, and tell us your best and strictly off the top estimate of what it would cost us today when it cost us $6,000 plus 2012. And she said, very nice woman, she said, figure 40% more than what you paid in 2012, but I don't recommend doing the whole village. It's not the way to go. So she didn't say what would have to happen. I really paid a lot of attention to that because the road in front of me is worse than 10 times worse than it was the day they did the job in the rain. So I want to go through.
Okay.
Chairs and other furniture items in the clubhouse should be put.
You want to take a vote on that motion?
Well, oh, are we taking a vote?
Yes, because
Could
you made
you
a motion.
read the motion over?
I have, who seconded?
I did.
Richard,
David Israel made a motion to re-engage Simmons and White to review the condition of the roadways. It was seconded by Richard Anderson.
And that's what you seconded.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's cool. Any more discussion? Can we have a vote?
Okay, Barbara? No?
Barbara?
You're muted.
Unmute.
Unmute.
No,
no.
Cookie?
Yes.
Richard?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Ed? Who? Ed?
Oh, me? Yes. I was looking at Barbara. I'm gonna get her a new camera.
Oh, Lord, I must do it.
And I'm voting yes. 8-1, the motion carries.
Thank you. We are continuing. Okay, the next one we decided is WPRF. Better control of WPRF spending is WPRF. Security put under one contract, again, I think.
They already- we already
not
dis-
allowed to bully us into splitting the contract.
There was some kind of technical thing that Eva said, remember when we did discuss it and we couldn't put two contracts together. Do you remember, Barbara?
Yes, you're right.
Yeah, we
At a meeting we were at, you're right.
Yeah, it was discussed, it was brought up, and I don't know if the lawyer said it, someone, do you remember it, David?
I don't
We couldn't do
remember.
it for some reason, I don't remember the reason.
I don't remember the core of the problem, but
Yeah,
there
right.
was an issue
There was,
that
because we wanted to do it.
to make it separate.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, I think part of it would be the difference in remuneration to the employees on WPF's contract to what's on our contract.
Yeah.
David.
I think
Currently, those are the same amounts, and they have been for quite some time.
The same amount?
Yes.
Then we had to really raise it. Okay.
The major problem is they own their property, we own our property. They do not want to be responsible for something that happens on our property. Do we want to be responsible for something that happens on their property? That was the
Like the guy dying.
Excuse
in-
me.
That was the hangup.
Yeah.
Okay.
It
It's
sounds right.
operations.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Anyhow,
Let's leave it at that.
Yes, because I think a more salient point is that we're taking on the risk of security screwing up.
That's true.
And that I feel is a big point. Because that's an unknown and insurance is getting out of hand here. So let me see.
Should I get some water for everybody?
Believe it or not, that is the end of the suggestions by
I
Bob.
had one, you didn't.
No, Bob's,
I had
Bob's.
one. Oh, that's the end of Bob. That's the
Okay.
end of Bob. Okay, that's the end of
Okay.
Bob's.
Did anybody else have anything to say?
Not about Bob.
No, you're.
What about Ruth?
Let me pick out some stuff.
I think I should get some bottles over there. What do you think? We didn't expect to be here this soon, so.
Hey, Bruce.
Bring in a piece.
Covered Bob Rivera. Reporter staff. The representative of the reporter staff is in this room right now.
What about it?
And it says, I wish to add removal of iguanas as a line item.
That has nothing to do with the reporter, but yes, I requested that line item.
I'm glad you identified the difference because I don't think the iguanas have any effect on the paper.
No, they're all in front of my door.
Not just your door.
Trying to get in.
I know.
Well, you would feed them.
So it's been suggested, I think at a staff meeting, that we take it on as a community problem because each building doing their own is useless.
David?
Eva was in my office this very day. I asked her if they have an effort.
No, this is.
And she said yes, and it costs $30
Right.
per iguana.
That's right.
Oh, no, that's crazy.
Bang.
She said it's a losing battle.
You.
She tries to clear them out and they just come back in. Now, if the fight was expanded to the whole village, that might or might not improve the situation. But the question I have asked, have they, they're known to be destructive in some cases. Have they burrowed into our geotube? Well, the answer is no.
No, they haven't.
These iguanas have pretty much been non-damaging. So the question is, do we really want to spend a lot of money in getting rid of them?
No. No.
The law on these creatures is awful. It allows you to go up to them and shoot them. And I just can't see that happening.
Don't want
here
that.
on campus.
Everyone is shooting each other.
So what it is you engage a trapper
Right.
who comes and supposedly takes them to an iguana paradise. We don't really know what they do with those iguanas.
Or make belts out of it.
But I would point out finally, $30 per animal.
No, we have,
And they're back next year.
Exactly.
You can't.
I had suggested, and you didn't think it was a good idea, that I had mentioned we had in my association a problem with snakes.
Snakes?
Snakes. And we eliminated him, not by shooting him, but buying something called an anti-snake, whatever, and it did work. It wasn't poisonous because, believe it or not, the stuff was really deer urine.
oh yeah, I heard that. I've heard that.
Deer urine. And I just never got to it. It came up to call Marty Buggs, who is mine. You may have a different person, but I think Marty would know. And if it was well, you won't have deer. You may have beer.
Okay, so let's go on. So what is it we're doing now?
Are the deer under contract?
No, they're not. We fired them.
Oh dear.
So what is it? I'm sorry, I went out to get some cold drinks for everyone. So did we have a motion or not?
No, we got
Okay, so then let's,
Member that wants to make a motion on that?
no.
I'd like to make a
You
motion.
would? Okay.
I'd like to make a motion that we inquire. I'm suggesting Marty Buggs, if there is another way and isn't poisonous. Okay, and if it isn't, or it is, we'll know. And then the cost would not be $30 an iguana.
But it would be costly.
Would be removal of a dead one.
Well, we could have a couple of hawks here and they would do it for nothing. But I think it's a start. And of course, it's nothing, and I'll bring it up as soon as the next meeting.
Okay.
That's your motion. Anybody want to second that?
No.
To bring it up at the next meeting?
No.
I want to.
I'll second that.
No. The motion was he wants to, what he just announced.
No, I want to question Marty.
I heard you.
If there's a way to remove them other than shooting them.
And then report it back to the next meeting. Okay, that's the motion.
Yes. I'll
Is there a
even second that.
Okay, any further discussion?
Well, I get a lot of residents that are telling me they want the iguanas to go. And I said, they crawl right up when you're I'm on the lake. They come right up to you, run around to see if you can be fed.
Mine too, right to the door.
I think they're all afraid to come to Greenbrier. We don't have snakes. We don't have
One of the principal concerns, we have about 500 feet of hibiscus along Century Boulevard. Turns out that hibiscus is one of their favorite fruits.
Yes, it is.
And I live in perpetual nightmare for the day they find those hibiscus bushes. And then, believe me, everyone in here will jump.
Yeah, they like mangoes and avocados too.
Right.
But wait a minute, how many years have they existed so far?
Many.
So we still have our
Many.
bushes, we still have
I
them.
just haven't found it, but they're on the roads now. They'll find it eventually.
And I also believe we have investigated some sort of chemical repellent.
That's what you said.
Non-poisonous.
No.
And I don't think there was one.
Okay, if I could make a comment here, I'm not officially on the board. In the last community where I lived, we just lived here over a year. We had the iguana issue. We hired a trapper, and the community was maybe 20% the size of Century Village. Okay. We did not eliminate the problem, but we minimized the problem at a fairly reasonable price, and they not only trapped them, but they carted them off. So I think if you get someone to look at the situation, and someone who, like David says, does not have an investment in in their company, that we could find a company that would do it at a more reasonable cost. But it's a problem here to stay. Last winter took care of some of it because there was the cold. 4 days of temperatures.
Oh, yeah.
Sub 40.
Right.
They'll drop out of the trees. Oh. And then somebody from maintenance needs to pick them up and throw them in the canal so they don't come back to life. It works. But yeah, I think your recommendation is good, but you need to have someone to look into it and suggest vendors.
Can we hear a concise motion?
He made one.
I think I made
it.
Marty. I made a motion.
Marty.
He made it.
That we look at alternate means.
Was that the
I
motion?
think we've done that.
No, the motion wasn't exact. The
He
motion
can amend it.
was.
He can
Well,
amend it.
you generalized it, but it was almost the same. I said, I'd like, to contact Marty Buggs. I don't mind. First of all, Bruce, if you recall who did the job for you, we can inquire.
Sure.
So the motion is to explore other means to solve the problem of the iguanas and come back if there is another way.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's fair.
I'll second that.
That's fair. Well,
I love data gathering.
I mean, that's
so
fine.
There's nothing wrong with
It
that.
also solves the problem of requiring multiple bids.
Yeah.
So.
What solve the problem of what?
Requiring multiple bids.
So it's been moved and it's seconded. Any further
Right.
discussion?
We look.
Have we had
and make one
discussion?
part of
But who's gonna take that on?
I just want to ask you something.
Oh.
Marty Buggs did come to do termites for us, and I found out that he really wasn't his forte. Because he's a bug man doesn't necessarily mean he knows how to get rid of
Animals.
So if you ask one person, you might ask another just to see, who's experienced, who has done it before. Do you know what I'm saying?
We get his man.
We can.
Well, if his
ask
man
Bruce.
is available, if Bruce can help us out, that's
Oh,
fine.
Bruce is excellent. He is an expert in washers and dryers. I could tell you
Who
that.
is the man that
Bruce
took-
is also an expert in shuffleboard.
I just want to make a comment about how much money you want to throw at this. This problem of iguanas in southern Florida has been on the evening news. This is a non-trivial problem and nobody really has a solution. That is why there is code in place that allows you on your property to come right up to them and shoot them.
We can't do that. Though.
And we can't have that
No,
here.
we'll shoot each other.
You know?
Ourselves.
We have had that
I
problem.
know.
Some clown with a rifle across the lake killing iguanas.
Yeah, that was over by the Secret Garden.
PBSO was ready to throw him in jail because who knows who he's going to hit,
Exactly.
right?
Well, we can.
That guy's still there.
We have a lot of people have looked at this problem. I don't want to see a lot of money thrown at it.
We're just inquiring. We're not saying
I agree.
we're not retaining anyone. Just we're
I have no
inquiring.
problem with that.
We can move on to the next thing.
We can do that administratively.
I mean,
Did we take a
Not if
vote on
it's
this?
over 25.
oh no, we forgot the vote. I'm
We need to
sorry.
vote on it.
Okay.
I actually didn't. I just.
Yes.
Oh.
David, you want to make a motion?
I thought you made the
It
motion.
wasn't made. It was made. It was made. It was made. It was second. Now let's vote on it.
Yeah.
Move on.
The motion is to explore other means of iguana removal and report back at the next finance committee meeting.
Whoa,
Motion made by Ed Grossman and seconded by Stuart Richland.
That's pretty quick, but fine.
No, I think,
Do you want to amend it?
no, I just want as soon as possible because
All right.
you may not find it in an hour.
No, that's exactly right.
Okay. Oh, I get a headache every time I come to a meeting.
Are we gonna lose them
Let me go
after
ahead
two?
and call the vote. Are we
Please.
all right?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Barbara,
Yes.
Cookie,
Yes.
Richard, yes.
Richard, yes,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Ed,
Yes.
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 Patricia, I vote yes, unanimous approval, motion carries.
Okay, good. Next.
Next,
You have to excuse me, I have grandparent disease.
We have,
He has an excuse.
I inquired of our IT guy, Steve Henn, which I do each year, of what he projects for next year, 2023.
Here you go.
And
Take this one.
summarize the first item. I think that's an amendment or an adjustment. Steve puts down an monthly stipend of $500. I don't think it was
He's the chair.
500
You
in
can't
the
make a
past. Memory serves me, it was less than 500. So I'm putting that as first. What do you have on there, Chris? For Steve's fixed.
Here, let me check.
It is currently. I think it's 4 and change, but let me do the quick math real quick.
Thank you for coming. If you saved it, tell you overtime.
You're welcome.
You couldn't afford it.
450.
Thank you, Bruce. Bruce, thank you.
Thank you. Well, what it was what he's asking for is 506,000 a year as a retained.
what has it been up to now?
Well, what are we paying?
5,400, yeah, 450 a month.
54?
4,500. Sorry, 5,400, yes.
What is the justification?
For the increase?
Yeah.
Yes.
Just because
Market increase.
we don't have more computers, we don't have more complex issues.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
What?
What?
Yes.
Oh, gas.
Yes.
Yes.
You're going in and out.
Everything is going up.
Yeah,
So-
okay, fine.
That's a good question, David. Maybe we have to go back to Steve and ask him. I would suspect that many professionals have raised their fee. And I think before we vote yes or no, we should go back and see how long he's been at the lower.
Chris, do you have that answer?
I don't have that answer on me, no.
Okay.
No, you have to go back a long way.
Wow.
Well,
So we table
I don't
the
know.
discussion?
I know that Steve provides a service here. I've worked with him over the years. We have really a state-of-the-art network here. He provides an important service.
okay.
But I don't want to be hijacked. You know, is this an unreasonable increase?
Is it from 45 to 56?
How much is 45 a month?
It's 6,000.
$50.
It's,
Oh, 6,000.
you're saying it's
Minimal.
450?
To 600.
$500.
To five, it's a
It's
500.
450 to 500. It's a $50 a month increase.
$1,100 a year.
All right, I'll make that motion that we grant him his increase to $500 a month.
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely.
Is it seconded?
I'll second it.
Don't hear us, Barb.
I'll second it.
Okay.
Any further discussion?
Call the vote.
Secretary, would you please call the vote?
David,
Just that we're agreeing to give him the
no, who seconded it?
I did. Richard Handelsman.
All right, David Israel made a motion, seconded by Richard Handelsman, to grant an increase to Steve Ham, our IT person, to increase to $500 per month for his retainer. Barbara?
Yeah.
Cookie?
Yes.
Richard?
Yes.
John?
Yes, it's necessary.
David?
Yes.
Ed?
Yes.
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 Yes, unanimous approval.
Okay,
Motion carries.
good.
We
Next,
have an additional portion of Steve's report.
okay.
The Google license fees that are included in my invoice will be approximately $2,500 annually, $12 a month for 16 users. I'm still considering the best database solution, but I think SharePoint would be worth considering. SharePoint has the most of the features we would be looking for, along a great deal of data controls and Word, Office, Excel license. Now, quite frankly, I asked them about that because when I first came here, I didn't know what the database was. I've been spending a lot of time. I don't think I have the expertise of David, but I got to tell you, for the last 3 months, I've been on that every day, and I humbly feel it could be improved. If we were to go this route, the cost would be an annual license fee. That's a license fee of $5,000. I'll wait until you're done.
I heard you. I heard everybody just said.
Listen,
I heard you.
it's important.
No, it's-
$5,000, which would meet the needs of the office. Once fully implemented, though, and with buy-in from the team, we could fully migrate away from Google Mail to Microsoft Outlook, which would be included in this plan and save the Google license fee. Although I will stress that this kind of transition would most likely take time for the users to get accustomed to, so I think it would, to drop the old one would be a full year, 2023.
All right.
How much do we save? And is it worth a year?
Not saving.
You're not saving. That's the whole bottom line. You're not saving.
This is not saving.
Why fix something that's not broke?
Right.
That's right.
I built a database with existing products that are online. It costs nothing. There's 61,000 files in that database. It works on keyword search, which is powerful and fast. I don't think there is any point in paying money for these other commercial products.
I agree.
I don't even know why Steve is presenting this stuff.
No, I said it. I did say it. I asked them to look into it.
Oh, okay.
I did say it.
And I will point out that this database is backed up on Carbonite, which is a global application, works like a charm. We've never really had any serious problems with the database. I mean, I will add that I actually back it up myself on 500 megabyte flash drive, but that's neither here nor there. Again, that costs virtually nothing other than the cost of the flash drive, which is trivial. I don't know why. Okay, you asked him. I got you.
Well, here's the reason I spent, and it helped me get much more familiar with the database. But in the issue of T-bills, I went into the database to get information on prior bylaws. And I traced from 2007, which was the latest. 2006, the bylaws were issued. 2007, they were amended, and there's a copy of the 2007. 2009, the bylaws contain considerable change. So I said, let's see where it changed and when did it get voted on. So the first thing I did, not the first, but I first went to the advisory committee and I noticed that we had several different chairs at different times. I then went to what I thought was the ultimate source, because anytime you change the bylaws, it has to be in the UCO Reporter. So I went and looked at all 12 issues on the UCO Reporter, and I can't find.
For a year, what is
2009.
Okay.
Because that's when they changed. Okay, I went to 2009 and there is a new set of bylaws. And I said, oh, that changed from 2007. Maybe they changed it in 2009. Then I went to 2008 and I can't find where the bylaws were voted on and the changes and a new bylaw issued. So
did you find the paper?
Oh, I found the paper.
2008, each month?
I started that, but I also, before I went there, I went to the advisory committee. And I think I saw all the advisory committees, but that's what precipitated it. If it's there, that's great. And if it's there, we should have, in my opinion, a special file. That's a real important document that you could just call it up. Yes, ma'am.
So the subject is that we want to take Steve's suggestion to change things.
Well,
however, I really believe that it's premature to look at this advice because it really will affect everything that's done at UCO.
Right.
And I really believe that it's the subject of a much more entailed look at. In other words, we really should start looking for a few people to put a committee together for IT modernization, let's call it, and have it really looked at. I mean, I'm only here 6 months and I've seen a few things that certainly could be, we could update a lot of things, but I really think that you should have a committee of people look at the subject. In other words, one of his recommendations is to move from Gmail to Microsoft Outlook. That's a whole different suite of products. So you have to then go to Microsoft Office. You have to stop doing things the way we've been doing them. And that is going to require basically a committee of people to implement such a far-reaching change. So I just don't want you to think that because Ed couldn't find what he was looking for, we should change on just that basis. This is a huge change that he's making. And I'm very familiar with this. David, I think you're...
I agree with you entirely, and I'm not for spending money, but on reacting to what I felt was a very detailed search.
And I'm agreeing that something should be done.
Who's to
Chris
say,
had his hand raised, by the way.
excuse me, who's to say that it isn't there? I can't say it isn't there because I can't find it.
And I understand your issue, but it's part of a much larger issue.
Okay, so here's the question. It's possible it's not in there. If you're that familiar, you think you could research it and find it?
That's not the question, Ed. The question is, are we going to change everything we're doing here in the village so that we can implement this and give the money necessary to the budget to do the change?
That's a very good question.
What you're asking is a research question that's separate. We could go look at that outside of this committee.
Well, I am looking at the cost, how it's implemented, is something else.
Entirely, and that's what I'm trying to point out.
And I hear you,
Okay,
but time is worth money too. We're volunteers.
right.
And if we could expedite what we have to do, it would help everybody.
And I guarantee you, what he's suggesting
Yeah.
will cost us
I know.
quadruple the time that we're spending today
To get it to work.
to get it to work.
Of course.
And to bring people up to speed. You know, I've had the same offer on the table from day one. If you can't find something in that database, ask me before you give up.
I never
Now,
give up.
The conversion of the UCO reporter was an incredible task. We found decades of UCO reporters stashed away, decaying over at Hastings. I remember that. And I had them pulled out years and years ago. We sent
Hastings or Camden?
Camden and sent to a professional. Were they all there? You don't know.
No, you won't know.
The key, I'll tell you, this database that I made is so simple and it's based on keyword search. But you've got to be a little imaginative in the keyword. You want to go to a professional databasing product, you're going to pay more, and people aren't going to like it.
David, that's just a suggestion.
Barbara has her hand.
No, Chris,
Barbara.
Chris, Barbara, and Richard had their hands up in case you didn't notice.
Barbara.
Yes, I agree with Joanne. I think it would be, first of all, not a good investment now. It would be too much of a change. And I think the suggestion, Joanne, about an IT small group of people who know about this could look into it for the future. But right now, what David has built has cost us nothing. And I can't see at this point that we have to go even think of going into that expense this year.
Chris, did you want to say something over here?
Yes, the G Suite currently costs us a little under $2,300 a year for every G Suite account, for every Google account. So it's fairly de minimis as far as.
What do we do with that?
Yeah, right. What do we do?
Well, that's for the @uco.com, or sorry, at unitedcivic.org.
Oh, this domain names were created.
Because if we switch to Outlook, we wouldn't be able to use the @unitedcivic.org. We would all have to change our email address.
And I never understood why we created those domains. I use Gmail, it cost me nothing.
Exactly.
No.
Yeah, it's $12 a month per account.
It's a huge endeavor to.
I move that we reject, is the IT man's name Steve?
Yes, Steve
I move
Hanna.
and reject Steve's recommendation.
Is that your motion?
Yes, that is.
Well, I could save you time. I rescind my suggestion.
All right, thank you. Motion
Just reading
off the
what he
floor.
said is no problem.
Okay,
Okay.
all right, what's next?
What's next?
Yeah, what's next?
Pass my
What's
water.
next? Oh,
Some drinks.
I
Come on,
missed, I
Ed,
didn't.
you're cutting
I
into my
didn't-
cocktail time.
Yeah.
I'll be right over.
Excuse me, there is another portion,
I'm listening.
and according to Steve, an annual license fee of $5,000 that should meet the needs of the office.
Oh, this is for Word?
No, this is his general addition to his stipend.
License for what?
Let's see.
He's looking to clean up.
I don't see, by the way, hold it. Okay, estimated hardware upgrades. 500 a month or $6,000 annually.
What? Did we?
Wait a minute.
Wait a minute, we didn't do that.
He's suggesting we need another server?
No, he's suggesting that possibly we'll
buy new computers.
Right.
Somewhere.
And his time for fixing.
Not now.
Not now is right.
Not now. We're in the middle of paying off a big amount.
Upgrades last year in the budget?
And we have a number, but
$11,000.
11,000, did we spend any of it?
We spent 12,800.
Okay, should we have another 12,800 this year?
no, this
No,
is,
no,
this
Wait a
is
minute.
basically 12,500 a month for his retainer and
Yes.
another 500 a month. So that's 1,000 a month. So that's $12,000.
That's all part of that budget?
What's the
No.
other
It's a different
$500?
Well, what about when he repairs? What if he replaces a computer?
We pay for it.
Hold it,
that's right, we paid for it anyway.
hold it. Estimated hardware upgrades, network equipment, computer upgrades, battery backup.
Right.
Okay,
And his estimate is on average, it'll cost us 6,000 for the year.
So the way
I don't
less
believe
than
that.
we spent
What did-
this year.
What did we, it cost
This year
us
we
last
spent
year?
12.
I don't have what it cost us last year, but just this is June to July, 855.
That we paid.
That's for computer replacements, computer component replacements.
I would,
are
Wow,
you joking?
what did we replace?
They cost $500 to $700.
Well, I think.
And
part
if
of
you
it
work
was
a little
we got
harder-
TV, that's included in there as well, so it's all computer and
I
associated
mean,
hardware.
it's beginning to look like a Star Wars repository in there.
Well, it's one of the reasons that I distributed the payables, the vendors, okay? If we overpaid Steve, then you have to vote on it. You have to have a budget
that's
item.
not Steve, that's equipment.
What?
That's not Steve, that's equipment. With
Hardware.
what stuff? With
Oh,
what
wait.
that,
That's for equipment and that's his estimate of what next year needs.
yes.
And if you don't
What
want
do you
to
think?
approve
You're
it,
the-
don't
you're the
approve
reason for
it.
saying
Half of what we spent
And I
this year.
don't think, excuse me, Chris, I don't look at last year. I look at this year. The man gave what he proposes. If you pay nothing last year and he could justify 35,000 this year, last year means nothing. That's
I get
why
you.
I'm not giving out the
understand that.
budget to boil the water. He is our IT guy. This is his budget. If you don't want it, say no. If you want it, say yes. What happened last year is yesterday's news.
Okay, I'd like to ask one question. How come every time the man comes to the office, and I don't really know him like they do, there's always a problem? He fixes one thing and then we create another problem here.
Well,
This has been going on since I'm here, which is not a long time,
yeah,
but it's been right or wrong.
I call.
We had to call them many times.
I call that the Hurricane Steve syndrome. And you're right, he'll come and fix something
Uh-huh.
and,
He throws something off.
you know, these things are not abacuses. These are complex pieces of equipment.
I got that.
They're routed through a server network. And to put it bluntly, shit happens. But whether we need to put $6,000 away or whatever it is, 12 times
It's more than
500,
that.
for new computers, I don't know. I would think we would replace them on a case-by-case basis. Now, you ought to be able to tell us
Correct.
what we spent on replacing computers last year,
Yes.
all right? And I would think that would be a reasonable guideline. These machines don't last forever. The battery
We don't last
backups
forever.
don't last
I
forever.
got that, but you have to look, since my screen was replaced because we couldn't see through it all. That was an old screen.
Yes,
Okay, that was one.
he comes in here, and that's what I thought we were voting on, the $500 a month. He comes in here, he does a whole bunch of diagnostics. He
Yes,
goes,
he
he works
does.
through all the machines.
Yeah, he does it.
But this is an additional chunk of money. And I would just offhand cut it in half.
So what are we cutting in here?
The money that I thought you said he wanted for hardware,
Yeah,
So,
another $500, right?
in addition to the
Yes.
500.
In addition to the 500.
Right,
yes.
which brings
So
us
that's why it's on the table.
I
Right,
got you.
That's why it's on the table. What I you don't get very quickly is because we don't capitalize small items anymore. And they're written off as expenses. Now, there's a plus and a minus. It takes some more work. You have to have more detail. But here's a simple solution. If we feel that's out of line, first of all, you don't have to approve his increase. Second of all, you don't have to approve his estimate. Now, what would happen if he's right and we're wrong? Nothing. That's why you have a budget.
That's right. You take it out of the reserve.
Right.
Now, when it comes out, every budget has what they call a little butter.
Yeah, we have that.
I got you.
Right.
But
That's the general.
no, there's a motion on the table.
We made a motion and approved an increase.
That was before.
That's the 500.
Now you want to make another motion?
Yes.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I make a motion that we allocate $250 a month to, what is it now that we're voting on?
He was talking about the
Hardware
equipment.
acquisition.
I'm gonna call it hardware and computer infrastructure.
Okay, I make a motion that we budget $250 a month for hardware and infrastructure.
The worst case scenario, and I'll second that.
Okay.
The worst case scenario is that server gives up the ghost. That has all sorts of impact in here.
We have a reserve item for that.
Yes,
I was
that's
just going to say, you have to have a reserve line. Of course you do.
Barbara has something.
Okay, David, anytime we needed equipment, and like Chris just said, that has a reserve on it, the big deposit, okay?
It does.
As far as a screen or a computer, why can't we just take it as it comes when needed and not put anything in the budget? Because we have a reserve. How many times have we you just said that we put in a new screen in your office, am I right? We had the money for it. It wasn't a big item.
It wasn't.
Now you want to put $250 a month? That's ridiculous. Why don't you take it as it comes? It goes to bids. They look at it and make sure the price is right. That's something you've never checked his prices all the time.
Right. I agree with you, but you got to tell me where the money is going to come from for these things.
In your reserve, you got $10 million.
Excuse me, the reserve is for extraordinary expenses, not for normal expenses. That's one. And two, while we really don't have a dedicated reserve, we have a pooled reserve.
Right.
Okay, so that really is just an imaginary number. That's why you have a pooled reserve. But the main thing is, ordinary expenses don't come out of a reserve. What would come out if the server went and it's a couple of grand, that comes out of a reserve.
That's right.
That's why you have a reserve.
Gotcha.
Not for ordinary expenses. So
where did the screen come from? The price for the screen that you talked about? Where did that come from?
it comes from expense because it's ordinary.
It's an ordinary expense, so
Yes,
that wasn't budgeted when you found the money.
We had 11,000 budgeted for it.
The budget has to have an operating expense. The reserve is if the server went and it cost you $11,000. That comes from a reserve. This is ordinary expenses. You could say everything comes from the reserves. It's not what a reserve is for. So if we want to, I think what's on the table here is to cut from $500 to $250. I don't think we had a vote on it.
Yes,
I second that. Paying $500 now, Chris.
No, it's not that we're paying $500 a month. It's that it was an estimated $500 a month for replacement. It's not a contractual thing that we have to pay every month. It's something that we should plan on saving for.
Was that last year? Is that what it was last year, Chris?
Again, last year, Barbara.
Last year was,
I didn't give the budget because last year is last year. Last year, there could have been no repairs to any equipment. This year, they all could go one time. Okay? Last year is not the benchmark. It's this year. Because last year is last year. I would like to call a vote.
So call it.
All right, a motion was brought by Richard Handelsman and seconded by David Israel.
I think that
No,
was.
you have it backwards.
Backwards.
Backwards. It was David who called it.
Oh, wait, I'm
And
sorry.
Richard second,
Okay.
yes. That's because there's so much chatter.
To allocate $250 per month for hardware and computer infrastructure. Barbara?
Yes.
Vicky?
Yes.
Richard?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Ed?
Yes.
Stuart?
Yep.
Patricia?
Yes.
I'm voting yes, it's unanimous. The motion.
Is there anybody here called unanimous?
They was just like.
I am just checking if we come to the end of the trail.
Yay!
Oh, yes, we haven't.
We have.
We have not.
Oh, no.
Here is the last of the Mohegans that we have now.
Okay.
And that was brought by Dan Gladstone, who left us. Well,
He's excellent. You gotta pretend he had a call and to come back. Is that true?
Let me guess, he says we should buy shares in the New Israel Bank.
No, the new bank.
What is
Can I finish here?
Yeah, go ahead.
It basically says that we should retain an expert or certified person, male or female, in Robert's rules and have him at the delegate assembly. Now, we have an awful burden on Richard. I mean, and I said to Richard, and I'll say to you, in the past, you had another gentleman who was handling the committee who was more verbose.
Randall.
Do you remember who I'm talking about?
Randall Borshaw.
Randall Borshaw. And he would stand up and say, David, you're wrong.
I know who you, yeah.
That's not in Richard's repertoire.
Yeah.
And I think one of the reasons I asked Bruce to volunteer, he's really very experienced in that, and he was pointing out some stuff, and I think it was helpful. Do you really know if what happened at the other meeting where I made a motion first and then second, and it was moved up to second, do you know what's in Robert's rules as far as the time allocated to an officer to speak?
Yes, I do.
Could you tell me?
David let David speak.
Go ahead, David.
You said you made a motion?
They were talking about.
Yes,
the
about time.
No, the time.
No.
Yeah.
You just said you made a motion.
Right.
Is that correct?
So you have to follow on the motion.
Ed, you said you made a motion.
Yes.
You can't make a motion as an officer.
Excuse me? True.
You can't make a motion,
as
you're
an
not a
officer.
delegate.
Right.
At the delegate assembly, only a delegate, there's lots of, look, don't get me started. There are lots of Robert's rules that have not been followed in the delegate assembly. But I don't want to stand up every 2 minutes.
Well,
only a delegate can make a motion. Only a delegate can vote. The president, you're going to stop smiling in a minute. The president should not speak as debate or discussion. He is there for parliamentary reasons only. Robert's rule says each person may speak for 10 minutes twice on a single issue. That is why I have asked Mr. Israel to start delegate assemblies with the statement, we can set our own limit, 3 minutes per speaker. He gets 2 tries. After he speaks, if he wants to speak again, he has to wait until the end of the other first speakers, then he can come back.
Well,
If you know, I could go on, but that's,
All right.
I just am letting you know, I know Robert's rules and but I'm not a confrontationer.
This was my comment when we used to be dealing with Randall Borchardt. Robert's rules are recommendations for the conduct of a committee meeting or a meeting.
Right.
They are not law. They are not statute.
Right.
They are not governmental code.
That's true.
Now, sometimes delegate assembly gets very fractious. And I think all that Robert's rules would do was bog us down endlessly. And I don't see the point. I think within a broad brush, yes. But all these little details for the conduct of the English parliamentary meetings, I don't think they have any place here whatsoever, other than as guides.
Well, I would just like to limit, unless speaking in an official capacity, 3 minutes. Officers' reports, law officers' reports, Commissioner Weiss, they're speaking officially. So they can go longer.
I understand.
I think that 3 minutes, I would also like to stop, shall we say, opinionated comments from the dais. But that's,
I got you.
That's up to you guys.
I hear you.
All right.
We're all guilty of that. It's not one just person. We're all guilty of it.
Yeah. But to go out and hire, and we looked at this before. This was a Randall Borchardt suggestion, by the way.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to say the number, but it was incredible what it would cost to get an official expert in Robert's rules to come sit on that stage. Ridiculous. Was beyond belief. And I would vote against it, but who cares? Someone wants to make that motion.
Lucas.
No.
No. Oh.
Usually
question. David, do we know how much it would cost? Just curious, to get a parliamentarian for a meeting.
That's what I was going to say.
That's what I just said.
Yes,
we looked at this years ago.
No, but we haven't checked it recently to get a price. I'm just curious.
That's correct. We would have to check currently.
Maybe they should just check into it, but do nothing right now. But I want to say something what Richard said. 3 minutes for the officers, 3 minutes for the people who live here to talk, and the other people, the officials, should get no more than 3 minutes either.
Yes,
and we did that long ago, if you remember, Ruth. We did not let the politicians have more than 3 minutes. Do you remember, Ruth?
Yes, and at the end of the meeting.
And at the end,
right.
You are guilty of.
Yeah, I understand.
Them. You should let them, David.
Sometimes you got to sit next to me and kick me.
I will.
That meeting is non-trivial to run. Believe me.
I know.
There is some stressful factor.
Now that Donald has taken over my spot next to you, I can't kick that far.
Okay.
Sit on the other side of him and wear spikes.
Does anyone want to make a motion on this?
I want to comment on what Barbara said.
Oh, yeah.
I think a 3 minute limit is not every time, but in general is too short to really give information. Now, it's easy to say I have nothing to say, but that meeting is the most efficient way to inform the delegates of what's important. Now, who decides what's important? It's up to the officer to decide. And I would be loath to agree with you because In my illustrious career, I had to address a union every month. And tell you the truth, a union meeting was no different than WPRF. I had to go down every single line item, and they had a chance to talk. We're talking how many? 8 officers? 8 times 3 is 24. If nobody goes beyond 3. Okay, we must have had 10 delegates last time. We had 10 times 3 is not a small amount. Then you have the comments from the floor. What are we having a delegate assembly for if we can't inform the delegates? And I defy anybody on a technical topic. You could go overdo it, but you can't necessarily report what is really important. Now, each one has their own experience. A lot of people say, yeah, you talk too much. But the predominant comment I get after the meeting is you did a terrific job. And a lot of that has come from professionals, okay? So the answer is, I feel, that's my feeling, that my job is to inform the delegates of important issues. And it isn't necessarily, we made $36 for the month. You have other items to talk about. So that being the case,
that's why
if you want to shortchange the delegates,
you know Robert's rules.
Yeah.
I've been raising my hand. You all know Robert's rules.
You could have the floor and the seal.
Thank you. All I want to say, it's no particular reflection on anyone. I was told to take the time. Everyone gets 3 minutes. There's no exceptions to the rule. If I gave you more minutes than everybody else I told you couldn't talk anymore, I would have a fight on my hands. And
not true.
Let me finish. You have the floor. When you started talking, and you do this a lot, and I know what you're going to say, and you can say it. You don't get to the financials. You said that it's important stuff. You never, ever, when you're told it's your turn, say, let me do the financials first, and whatever time is left over, then you can say, I looked into this, I looked into that. You're getting into a lot of different things, and I know you told me it has to do with financials. I don't totally agree with you. When we're on that stage as officers, I'm very short, because if I don't have anything of importance to say to the people, I don't want to just keep talking. You never get into your financial report.
That's not true. I always report it. David says quickly. I have yet to get a question from the floor. Now, you think the monthly report that we made $86 is more important than the ability to earn 100?
You know what I'm thinking? No, I don't think that. So, but your financials are much more than that. It's not that, oh, we made $86, we spent, it's much more than that.
Yeah.
People have no idea what's coming in, what's going out, what we might be paying, what we need to accumulate. You know, when people get hit with a lot of money, I can tell you this, from WPRF, UCO, or anywhere else, they're like, how come we got such a raise? Do you understand what I'm saying? Why don't you give facts? Like, I think that we're really going to have to put more money into this or more money. Do you know what I'm saying?
I hear.
Maybe I'm not clear.
I hear you. And what I do is I highlight. This was more than normal. Okay. The bottom line is this. I've gone back through other reporters, and it doesn't take pages. I've seen in the past, there was a summary financial put in the reporter. And that's another way.
Okay.
I'm going to ask David again, how many people requested a copy of the certified report? David said, call me, bring it in. How many people have called me and said, what do you mean about this? What do you mean about that? Okay. You don't expect 100% participation. However, we are getting less participation than when I first came here because of the demographics has changed.
That's correct.
Okay, that's correct. We now have a fair amount of unit owners that if you lost $250,000, they wouldn't budge. I have two, and I can't identify residents in Wellington A that have enough capital to buy Century Village 3 times. So their feeling isn't the same. Their feeling isn't the same. And how long are they here? This is the second, the third, the fourth home.
Gotcha.
But I was taught when you're talking to someone who doesn't have the knowledge, you talk at a level that's as low as possible. I ask for questions, and no one answers. Never, I got one question from the floor. Okay. It's how you see it. Yes.
I just want to point out that in 15 minutes, we're gonna lose
Barbara and Cookie.
2 people, and we will no longer have a quorum at that point. So if there are other items that we might need to be voting on,
then I
might suggest we move them.
I suggest we terminate the meeting and we'll take it up at the next meeting. We should have everybody here.
All right, but he's been trying to.
I was just gonna say, when Barbara said 3 minutes for everyone, I prefaced my comment with when speaking officially. At the beginning of each delegate assembly, you ask for officers' reports and the law enforcement officers. I believe that they need more minutes. They're speaking officially. But once the motion is made and discussion starts, that's when the 3 minutes, 2 bites kicks in.
Yeah, there are other ways of distributing information.
That too.
I publish a blog. Anybody, any officer or unit owner is absolutely invited to publish on the blog. I send out 2,200 emails, principally Donald's report. But I can send anything. If you have something to say to the unit owners, I can get it out to 2,200 people, bang. And you hit the board members that way, and a lot of it is of interest, ends up on a bulletin board. There are other ways of distributing information. It's very hard to get all of the data across at delegate assembly. I think there should be some restriction on time, but I think Ed makes a point. Some of these people, I mean, you know, you cut someone off like Greg Weiss, you're shooting yourself in the foot because he has sources of information that we don't have that might be of great interest to us. The sheriff's deputies,
I said law enforcement
are very useful.
And Greg Weiss, I said that.
Okay.
When they're campaigning, 3 minutes.
But I will say to Ed, I've said it before, you've heard the speech. My model of a treasurer's report was Marie Oliver. She would stand up with her ledger book. The expenditures were, the receipts were, the balance is, close the book and sit down. That to me was a perfect treasurer's report. I loved it.
David, that's even too long as far as you're concerned.
No, really.
That's not a person.
Is there anything for them to?
Okay.
What else do you have, Ed?
I'm moving to end the meeting because I want those on Zoom to be able to.
Because it's been 2 hours and 15 minutes.
Yeah, Joanne's right. We're going to lose Zoom.
Yeah.
And we'll lose our quorum. Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Bye, Barbara. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, Cookie.
Thank you for
attending in person.
Thank you, Joanne.
In person.
Are we adjourning?
Yes, we adjourn. Meeting adjourned. I'm sorry.
Meeting adjourned.
You get this.
Did I miss?
I invite everybody to go to.
Forget it.